Jonathan Livingston Seagull by Richard Bach. Hello and welcome. I'm so glad you're here with me today. Picture this for a moment. A lone seagull floating far from the chaos of the flock. Down below, 1,000 birds are shrieking and diving around fishing boats, fighting tooth and nail over scraps of fish and stale bread. For them, life's pretty straightforward. Short of food to shore. Flight? It's just transportation, a way to fill their bellies. But this one bird, he's something else entirely. While the others scramble for leftovers, he's up there at 100 feet, trembling with effort, twisting his wings into an uncomfortable arch, trying to master something they'd all think was ridiculous. Flying as slowly as possible. The wind barely whispers across his face. His feathers start to shake, he loses lift, and down he goes. Now here's the thing. For a seagull, stalling mid-flight is basically the ultimate embarrassment. It's like tripping in front of your entire high school. But this bird, Jonathan Livingston Seagull, doesn't feel embarrassed at all. He just stretches out his wings and goes for it again. And again. And again. He's the weird kid of the seagull world. His parents don't get him, the other birds ignore him. And why? Because he's got this wild, almost crazy belief that life has to be about more than just scraping by. That if you're born with wings, the most incredible thing you could possibly do is learn to truly fly. Today, we're exploring a little book that's touched millions of lives across the globe. It's a fable called Jonathan Livingston Seagull, written by Richard Bach, a former Air Force pilot who understood the magic of flight. When it came out, it absolutely exploded, hitting the top of bestseller lists and capturing the imagination of a generation wrestling with questions about meaning, conformity, and what it means to be truly free. This isn't just about a bird, though. It's about that voice inside you that whispers you were made for something more. It's about chasing excellence for its own sake, and finding the guts to follow your own weird, wonderful path, even when everyone around you thinks you've lost your mind. By the time we're done here, you'll discover something powerful about your own potential. You'll see that those limits you think are holding you back, the ones society puts on you, your family accepts, even the ones you've convinced yourself are real, might just be smoke and mirrors. This is a story about shattering the chains of limited thinking and discovering what freedom really feels like. So let's dive in. Jonathan's journey starts with this insatiable curiosity. While every other gull saw flying as a necessary chore, Jonathan saw it as this glorious, unsolved mystery. He spent entire days alone, experimenting. He figured out that flying just inches above the water let him glide with way less effort. He taught himself to land, not with the usual clumsy splash, but with this long, graceful slide, his feet marking his progress in the sand. His parents were beside themselves. His mother would practically beg him, "Why, John, why? Why can't you just be like the rest of the flock?" His father, trying to be practical and kind, would reason with him. "Winter's coming," he'd say. "This flying stuff is fine and all, but you can't eat a glide, son. Remember, the whole reason you fly is to find food." Jonathan really did try to listen. He honestly did. For a few days he joined the mob around the fishing boats, fighting for scraps like everyone else. But his heart just wasn't in it. It felt empty. He kept thinking, I could be using this time to actually learn something. There's so much I don't know yet. And before long he was back out there by himself, far from shore, hungry maybe, but also happy, and learning. His new obsession became speed. He quickly discovered that a seagull's body wasn't exactly designed for dramatic steep dives. Every time he pushed past 70 miles per hour, his wings would start shaking violently, and he'd lose control, tumbling like a feathered meteor into the water below. 10 times he tried. 10 times he crashed in a spectacular mess of foam and feathers. Most birds would have called it quits. But Jonathan, soaking wet and exhausted, had a light bulb moment. The secret, he realized, must be keeping his wings absolutely still at high speeds. He climbed up to 2,000 feet, tipped into his dive, and from the moment he hit 50 miles per hour, he locked his wings in place. It worked. In just 10 seconds, he rocketed through 90 miles per hour. He'd just set a world speed record for seagulls. But the celebration was short-lived. The instant he tried to pull out of the dive, the second he changed the angle of his wings even slightly, that horrible, violent spin came back. And at 90 miles per hour, hitting the water was like hitting concrete. Jonathan literally exploded mid-air and slammed into the ocean. When he finally came to, night had fallen. He bobbed in the moonlight, his wings feeling like they weighed a ton, but the weight of his failure felt even heavier. A voice in his head whispered the words he'd been fighting his whole life. "I'm just a seagull. I have limits. My nature won't let me go beyond them." Dad was right. I need to forget this nonsense, go home to the flock, and just accept that I'm an ordinary limited bird. He agreed with the voice. Seagulls belong on shore at night. He'd be normal. Everyone would be happier. He started the long, tired flight home. But as he flew through the darkness, that same voice suddenly screamed in alarm. "Dark! Seagulls never fly in the dark. If you were meant for night flying, you'd have owl eyes. If you were built for speed, you'd have short wings like a falcon." And right there, hovering 100 feet up in the dark, Jonathan blinked. His pain, all those promises he'd just made to himself, they just vanished. Short wings like a falcon. That's it, he realized. What an idiot I've been. All I need to do is fold most of my wings back and fly on just the tips. Short wings. Without hesitating even a second, he climbed back, up to 2,000 feet, pulled his long wings in tight against his body, and dropped into a vertical dive. The wind became a roaring monster. 70 miles per hour, 90, 120, then 140, and this time, he was stable. With just the tiniest adjustment of his wingtips, he smoothly pulled out of the dive and rocketed above the waves like a gray missile under the moon. He'd done it. 140 miles per hour, and in complete control. Those promises about being normal? Gone. Blown away in that magnificent, howling wind. He felt zero guilt. Those kinds of promises, he understood now, are only for gulls who've accepted being ordinary. By the next morning, he was at it again. From 5,000 feet up, he dove straight down, hitting a terminal velocity of 214 miles per hour. The speed was pure joy, pure power, pure beauty. In his excitement, he didn't realize he was on a direct collision course with the breakfast flock. He couldn't stop, didn't even know how to turn at that speed. So he squeezed his eyes shut. He shot straight through the center of the flock like a cannonball, a screaming blur of wind and feathers. By some miracle, nobody died. For Jonathan, it was a breakthrough, the single greatest moment in the history of the flock. He spent the rest of the day perfecting his skills, inventing moves no seagull had ever attempted, loops, slow rolls, the pinwheel. When he finally returned to the beach that night, dizzy and exhausted, he was absolutely bursting with joy. He thought, when they hear about the breakthrough, they'll go crazy with excitement. We can do so much more now. We can lift ourselves out of ignorance. We can be free." But the flock wasn't excited. They were assembled for a council gathering, and they were waiting for him. The elder gull's voice boomed with ceremonial gravity. "Jonathan Livingston Seagull, stand to center." Jonathan thought it must be for honor, that they'd witnessed his breakthrough. But the elder continued, "Stand to center for shame in the sight of your fellow gulls." The words hit like a punch to the gut. He was being punished for his reckless irresponsibility, for violating the dignity and tradition of the gull family. Being centered for shame meant banishment. He'd be cast out to live alone on the far cliffs. The elder's final words were chilling. "Life is the unknown and the unknowable, except that we are put into this world to eat, to stay alive as long as we possibly can." For the first time, Jonathan challenged the council. "Irresponsibility?" he cried. "My brothers! Who's more responsible than a gull, who finds and follows meaning, a higher purpose? For 1,000 years we've fought over fish heads, but now we have a reason to live, to learn, to discover, to be free. Give me one chance. Let me show you what I've found." But the flock might as well have been carved from stone. Together they shut their ears and turned their backs on him. Jonathan spent his remaining days alone. But he wasn't lonely. His only sadness was that the other gulls refused to see the glory of flight that was waiting for them. He kept learning. He figured out that high-speed dives helped him catch rare, delicious fish deep underwater. No more fishing boats needed. He learned to sleep while flying, to navigate through thick fog, to ride high winds inland, and feast on delicate insects. He discovered that boredom, fear, and anger are what make a gull's life so short. And with those gone, he lived a long, wonderful life. Then one evening, as he glided peacefully through his beloved sky, 2 gulls appeared at his wingtips. They glowed pure as starlight, and the precision of their flying was breathtaking. He tested them, slowing to barely 1 mile per hour, right on the edge of stalling. They matched him perfectly. He rolled and dove to 190 miles per hour. They stayed in flawless formation. "Who are you?" he finally asked. "We're from your flock, Jonathan. We're your brothers," they answered. "We've come to take you higher, to take you home." Jonathan was confused. "Home? I don't have a home. Flock? I don't have a flock. I'm an outcast." But they explained, "You've learned. One school is finished, and it's time for another to begin." And in that moment, understanding washed over Jonathan. They were right. He could fly higher. It was time to go home. With one last look across the silver land where he'd learned so much, he rose with the 2 starlight gulls and disappeared into a perfect dark sky. Jonathan found himself in what he first assumed was heaven. His body was different now, glowing brilliant white, his wings like polished silver. And it flew so much better than his old one. With half the effort, he could reach twice the speed. But he soon discovered that even this new body had limits, a maximum speed he couldn't seem to break. And in heaven, he thought, there shouldn't be any limits. The world he'd entered was beautiful, but sparsely populated. The gulls here were magnificent, and they all shared one thing. For each of them, the most important thing in life was reaching perfection in what they loved most, flying. They were gulls who thought like him. He asked his instructor, a wise gull named Sullivan, why so few of them were there. Sullivan explained that Jonathan was literally 1 in a million. "Do you have any idea how many lives we go through?" Sullivan said, "before we even get the first hint that there's more to life than eating, fighting, or climbing the pecking order. 1,000 lives, John, 10,000. He explained that we choose our next world based on what we learn in this one. learn nothing, and the next world is identical to the one before, same limitations and all. But Jonathan had learned so much, so fast, that he'd basically skipped thousands of lifetimes to get here. Jonathan's learning took off like a rocket, but he still had questions. One evening he approached the elder gull, Chiang, a bird so skilled he could outfly anyone in the flock. "Chiang," Jonathan asked, "this world isn't heaven at all, is it?" The elder smiled. "You're learning again, Jonathan Seagull." He then revealed the most mind-bending secret Jonathan had encountered yet. "No, Jonathan, there is no such place. Heaven isn't a location, and it isn't a time. Heaven is being perfect." Chiang explained that perfect speed wasn't about flying 1,000 miles an hour, or even light speed, because any number is still a limit, and perfection doesn't have limits. Perfect speed, my son, is being there. Without warning, Chiang vanished and reappeared 50 feet away in an instant. Jonathan was amazed. This was the next level. The trick Chiang taught him was to stop seeing himself as trapped in a limited body. The trick was knowing that his true nature existed everywhere at once, across all space and time, as perfect as an unwritten number. Day after day, Jonathan practiced intensely, but couldn't move even a feather's width. "Forget about faith," Chiang told him. "You didn't need faith to fly, you needed to understand flying. This is exactly the same." And then one day it clicked. Jonathan closed his eyes and understood. "I am a perfect, unlimited gull." When he opened his eyes, he and Chiang were standing on a completely different beach, on some strange planet with a green sky and 2 yellow suns. "It works!" Jonathan screeched with pure delight. Under Chiang's guidance, Jonathan's abilities expanded rapidly. He learned to fly through time itself, visiting the past and the future. And then Chiang told him he was ready for the most difficult, powerful, and fun lesson of all: understanding the meaning of kindness and love. Not long after, Chiang gathered all the gulls. As he spoke, his feathers began glowing brighter and brighter, until nobody could look directly at him. His last words were, "Jonathan, keep working on love." And then he was gone. As days passed, Jonathan found his thoughts drifting more and more to the earth he'd left behind. He wondered if there might be a gull back there, struggling to break through his own limitations, maybe even an outcast like he'd been. The more he practiced kindness and love, the stronger the pull became. Because Jonathan was born to be a teacher, and his way of showing love was sharing the truth he'd discovered with someone ready to hear it. Sullivan tried to talk him out of it. "John, they can't even see their own wingtips. The gull who sees farthest is the one who flies highest." But Jonathan had the perfect response. What if Chiang had never gone back to his old worlds? Where would you be today? And with that, holding in his mind an image of the great gull flocks on a distant shore of another time, Jonathan understood himself not as bone and feather, but as a perfect idea of freedom and flight, limited by absolutely nothing. And he returned. He found a young, fierce, angry bird named Fletcher Lynn Seagull, who'd just been made an outcast for pulling a barrel roll around the elder gull. A gentle voice entered Fletcher's mind, startling him. "Don't be harsh on them, Fletcher Seagull. By casting you out, the other gulls have only hurt themselves. Forgive them and help them understand." Appearing an inch from his wingtip was the most brilliant white gull he'd ever seen. It was Jonathan. He asked Fletcher one simple question: "Fletcher Lynn Seagull, do you want to fly?" Fletcher's answer was immediate and passionate. "Yes, I want to fly." And just like that, Jonathan the student became Jonathan the teacher. Fletcher turned out to be a nearly perfect student, strong, fast, with a burning desire to learn. Soon, Jonathan had 6 more students, all of them outcasts. They loved the intense flying practice, but struggled with the philosophy. When Jonathan would say things like, "Your whole body, from wingtip to wingtip, is nothing more than your thought itself," it sounded like nice poetry, and they'd fall asleep, exhausted from the day's flying. After a month, Jonathan announced it was time to return to the flock. His students were terrified. The law clearly stated an outcast never returns. But Jonathan simply said, "We're free to go where we want and to be what we are," and he lifted off toward their old home. Their arrival was spectacular. 8 gulls in a perfect double diamond formation, roaring over the council beach at 135 miles per hour, then rolling as one bird before pulling up into a flawless stand-up landing. All 8,000 gulls of the flock watched in stunned silence. The word of the elder went out immediately: ignore them. Any gull who speaks to an outcast becomes an outcast himself. But Jonathan wasn't fazed. He held his practice sessions directly over the beach, pushing his students to new heights. And in the darkness, curious gulls would gather in a circle around them, listening, not wanting to be seen. A month later, the first gull from the flock crossed the line and asked to learn. Then another came, Kirk Maynard Gull, dragging a broken wing. "My wing," he said. "I can't move my wing," Jonathan told him. "Maynard Gull, you have the freedom to be yourself, your true self, here and now, and nothing can stand in your way." "I say you are free," Jonathan declared. And just like that, Kirk Maynard Gull spread his wings effortlessly and lifted into the dark night air, crying out, "I can fly!" By sunrise, nearly 1,000 birds had gathered, listening. They started viewing Jonathan as something divine, the son of the great gull. Jonathan sighed at the misunderstanding. "They call you devil, or they call you God," he told Fletcher. The flock's fear and awe came to a head a week later. Fletcher was demonstrating a high-speed dive when a young bird flew into his path. To avoid it, Fletcher snapped hard left and slammed into a cliff of solid granite at over 200 miles per hour. He found himself drifting in a strange sky, where Jonathan's voice reached him. "Oh, Fletch, come on, think." "If you're talking to me right now, then obviously you didn't die, did you?" Jonathan explained that Fletcher had just shifted his level of consciousness, and he could choose to stay at this higher level or go back to the flock. Fletcher chose to return. He opened his eyes at the base of the cliff, surrounded by the entire flock. A huge commotion erupted. "He lives! He that was dead lives!" But the awe quickly twisted into fear. "He's a devil! Devil, come to break the flock!" The mob, eyes glazed and beaks sharp, closed in to destroy him. "Would you feel better if we left, Fletcher?" Jonathan asked calmly. And instantly they were standing together half a mile away, the mob's beaks snapping on empty air. Later, Fletcher asked the question burning inside him. "I don't understand how you can love a mob of birds that just tried to kill you." Jonathan's answer was everything he'd learned distilled into one truth. "Oh, Fletch, you don't love that. You don't love hatred and evil, of course. You have to practice seeing the real gull, the good in every one of them, and help them see it in themselves. That's what I mean by love." Then he looked at Fletcher and told him his own time as instructor was ending. "You don't need me anymore," Jonathan said. "You need to keep finding yourself. That real, unlimited Fletcher Seagull, he's your instructor." As he spoke, Jonathan's body began to shimmer and go transparent. "Don't let them spread silly rumors about me, or make me a god," he said. "Poor Fletch, don't believe what your eyes tell you. All they show is limitation. Look with your understanding, find out what you already know, and you'll see the way to fly." And then Jonathan Seagull vanished into empty air. After some time, Fletcher faced a new group of students, eager for their first lesson. He started trying to explain Jonathan's philosophy, that a seagull is an unlimited idea of freedom. The young gulls just looked at him, totally confused. Fletcher sighed, then smiled. He started over. Very well," he said. "Let's begin with level flight." And in that moment, he understood. He understood that his friend Jonathan had been no more divine than he himself was. As he looked at his students, he saw them as they really were, and he loved what he saw. "No limits, Jonathan," he thought, and smiled. His race to learn had begun. So, what do we take away from this beautiful, deceptively simple story? Jonathan Livingston Seagull is this timeless exploration of pursuing excellence and having the guts to be different. Jonathan isn't just a bird. He's every artist, every scientist, every entrepreneur, every athlete, every young person who's ever looked around and thought, there's got to be more than this. He represents that voice inside us that craves mastery, not for applause or money, but for the pure joy of becoming better. The flock represents society. It's the well-meaning but limited expectations of the world around us. It's that voice saying, "This is just how things work. Don't make waves. You learn to get a job. You work to survive." The flock isn't evil. It's just stuck. It's scared of what it doesn't understand. In our world, dominated by social media, where the pressure to conform, fit in, and follow the crowd is more crushing than ever, Jonathan's story hits different. It's a powerful reminder that your purpose isn't to become like everyone else. It's to discover your own unique flight, that thing you love so much you'd be willing to be the weird one for it. The story also teaches something profound about mentorship. Jonathan's journey doesn't end when he achieves perfection. It finds its true meaning when he returns to teach others. The highest level of mastery isn't just knowing, it's sharing. It's about finding your Fletcher Lynn Seagull, that next person who's hungry, angry, and ready to learn, and showing them the way. So how can you apply this to your own life right now? Here are 3 simple actions worth considering. First, identify your flight. What's that one skill or passion that, like flying for Jonathan, matters more to you than just getting by? What would you do purely for the joy of it, even if nobody was watching? Even if it brought you 0 fame or fortune? Acknowledge it. Name it. That's your path. Second, challenge a limiting belief. Jonathan had to destroy the idea that he was just a quote 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 a quote 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 quote. What's one rule or belief you hold about yourself that might not actually be true? Maybe it's a voice saying, "I'm not creative," or "I'm not smart enough for that." For just 15 minutes today, act as if that limitation doesn't exist. Write 1 page. Solve 1 problem. Take 1 tiny step on the path you thought was closed. And third, find your Chiang, or be a Jonathan. Look for someone you can learn from, a teacher, mentor, an author. Soak up their knowledge. But just as importantly, look for someone who's 1 step behind you. You don't have to be a master to teach. You just need to be 1 step ahead. Helping someone else is the fastest way to cement your own understanding. The story of Jonathan Livingston Seagull is, at its heart, a promise. It's the promise in the book's dedication to the real Jonathan Seagull, who lives within us all. Your life isn't just about getting from shore to food and back again. It's about discovering the glory of your own flight, whatever that might be. It's about learning, discovering, and becoming free. That was the story of Jonathan Livingston Seagull by Richard Bach. We've covered the major themes and the journey today. But here's the truth. A summary can only ever be a map. The real magic happens when you experience the territory yourself. It's in those quiet moments when a simple phrase or powerful image connects with you in a way you never expected. This podcast is designed to help you decide if this book deserves your time. If anything we've talked about today has lit a fire in you, I genuinely encourage you to grab a copy. Reading it isn't just learning. It's an experience that can genuinely shift how you see yourself and the vast open sky of your own potential. The link to the book is in the description below. Also, if you found this journey valuable, please take a moment to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. That way, you won't miss our next deep dive into another life-changing book from the world's most successful minds. Let's keep learning and let's keep growing together. Thank you for listening.